My name is David. I'm 38 years old and I've been married to Claire for almost 10 years. We met at university, drawn together by mutual interests. Both of us loved the outdoors, reading, and we had a knack for making each other laugh. When we married, I thought we had everything ahead of us. We were a team. At least that's what I thought. Claire is beautiful, smart, and confident. She's always been the life of the party, outgoing, charismatic, and someone who people just gravitate toward. And I love that about her. I love the way she lit up a room, the way she made friends easily, the way she took on every new challenge with grace and determination. Over the years, we built a life together, a comfortable life, with a house in a nice neighborhood, careers that were both fulfilling, and a shared vision of the future. I thought we were happy, and I thought that meant we were immune to anything that could shake our foundation. But something had changed. The cracks had started to show slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. It started with her being more distant, longer hours at work, weekends that seemed to have a life of their own. I told myself she was just busy. She was climbing the corporate ladder, and I was proud of her ambition. I figured that this was just a phase, a product of her work demands. But it wasn't just work. It was her behavior, her attitude, her moods, and the way she became increasingly harder to talk to. And it was the way she started looking at me, like she was seeing a stranger instead of her husband. I didn't want to admit it to myself, but the truth was becoming clearer. Something was going on, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. We were approaching our 10th wedding anniversary, and I had decided that this year would be different. I would make sure that we celebrated it properly. I made reservations at the finest restaurant in town, planning every detail meticulously. I wanted to remind Claire of the connection we had when we first met, the magic that had once felt so undeniable. It was going to be a night for us. No distractions, just the two of us, and our history together. I had no idea how wrong I was. The day of our anniversary came, and I was excited. I had already picked up Claire's favorite flowers and written her a card, something personal, expressing how much she meant to me. I wasn't going to let the cracks in our marriage define this night. I still believed we had something worth saving. Claire had been acting a little off in the past few weeks, more distracted than usual. I didn't say anything about it. I told myself I was overthinking it. But as the evening drew closer, I started to feel a sense of unease. I tried to shake it off as I got dressed for the dinner, putting on my best suit, knowing I wanted this night to be perfect for her. The table was set, the candles lit, and everything seemed just right. She got home late as usual, and I greeted her with a smile, trying to push the unease aside. She looked beautiful, as always, but there was something different tonight, something off in the way she looked at me. Her smile was slightly forced, and I could see a tension in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "I'm so sorry, David," she said as she walked through the door, dropping her purse onto the table. "Work ran late again. I didn't mean to keep you waiting." "It's okay, Claire. You look amazing," I said, trying to reassure her. And she did. She looked stunning, as always. But something about the way she said it, the way her eyes flickered for a second, made me feel uneasy. There was something else behind those words. She walked into the living room, and I watched her pull off her jacket, revealing a beautiful necklace sparkling around her neck. One I had never seen before. It was delicate, with a subtle shine, and it looked expensive, elegant. But the way she wore it, almost nervously, as though she was trying to hide it, set off alarms in my head. I hadn't bought her any jewelry this year. I had planned to get her something meaningful, but I hadn't yet picked it out. I was planning to ask her about it over dinner, but the thought didn't sit well with me. Where had this necklace come from? She caught me staring and quickly adjusted the necklace, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. "What do you think?" she asked, her voice too light. "Do you like it?" "Where did you get that?" I asked before I could stop myself. It wasn't the way I had planned to start the evening, but the question slipped out before I could filter it. Claire blinked, clearly taken aback. She put a hand to her neck, the nervous energy in her movements only increasing. "Oh, this? It's just a gift from a colleague. You know, I mentioned a work event to you a few weeks ago. It's just a little token of appreciation." A colleague. A token of appreciation. It didn't sound right. The words didn't add up. My stomach churned as I nodded, my mind racing. Who was this colleague? How had she ended up with a necklace like that? Something so personal, so expensive. I tried to shake off the doubts, to focus on the evening ahead, but the knot in my stomach only tightened. We sat down to dinner, and I tried to keep the conversation light, trying to push away the feeling of dread that kept creeping in. I asked her about her day, her work, her projects, but it felt distant, like I was talking to a stranger instead of my wife. Claire smiled, laughed a little, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. And the necklace she wore hung around her neck like a silent reminder of everything I didn't know. As dinner progressed, I found it harder to focus on anything other than the necklace. Every time Claire moved, I could see it glittering around her neck, drawing my attention like a magnet. I had never seen her wear anything like it before. Not in all the years we had been together had she ever worn jewelry like that, especially not without telling me about it. I kept telling myself I was overthinking things. I had no concrete reason to be suspicious. Claire and I had always shared everything. So why did something as small as a necklace suddenly feel like a red flag? We continued eating, the conversation awkward at best. Claire seemed to be trying to keep things normal, talking about her work, telling me about her colleagues and what had happened that week. But I noticed the way she avoided certain topics, the way she tensed up when I mentioned names of people I didn't know. I pushed those thoughts aside, trying to focus on the meal, but every word she said felt like it was coming from a stranger. After dessert, Claire excused herself to the bathroom. I sat there alone with my thoughts, the silence of the evening pressing down on me. I couldn't ignore the way my heart was racing, the way my mind kept returning to that necklace. A colleague? A gift? It didn't make sense. I hadn't seen her wear anything like that before, and if she had, she would have mentioned it to me. She always did. She would have shown it to me with a smile, told me about the occasion. But this felt different. I stood up and walked to the kitchen, trying to steady my nerves. I needed to figure this out, needed to make sense of everything. There was a drawer in the hallway where we kept our receipts, and I realized that if I could find the one from the night she got the necklace, maybe I could understand where it came from. I opened the drawer and sifted through the receipts, hoping to find something that would make sense. And then, there it was, a receipt from a jewelry store. The date on the receipt was just a few weeks ago. I could feel my pulse quicken as I picked it up, my eyes scanning the details. A luxury necklace for special occasions. It wasn't from a work event, as she had claimed. This was something far more personal. My heart was pounding as I read the receipt. It was the same kind of necklace I had seen Claire wear tonight, and the price was far more than I expected for a colleague's gift. This wasn't something a colleague would give to someone like Claire. It was too intimate, too expensive. I barely had time to process the shock before Claire returned from the bathroom. She walked into the room smiling, her face flushed from the wine. But the moment she saw me holding the receipt, her smile faltered. "What's that?" she asked, her voice laced with panic. I tried to keep my voice steady, to sound casual, but I couldn't hide the anger bubbling up. "This is from the jewelry store where you got your necklace," I said, my voice tight. "You told me it was a gift from a colleague, but the receipt says otherwise." Claire's eyes widened, her hand instinctively reaching up to touch the necklace, as if she could hide it from me. I watched as her posture shifted, the confidence in her eyes vanishing. She was nervous, on edge, and the truth started to become clear. "You said it was from a colleague, but this doesn't add up, Claire," I continued, my voice more forceful now. "Who gave you this necklace?" She looked at me, her face pale. The smile was gone, replaced by something I couldn't quite place. Guilt, shame, fear. She didn't speak for a long time, her lips trembling as if she was searching for the right words. I I didn't mean to lie, David," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want to hurt you, but I didn't know how to tell you the truth." The truth. That word hit me like a ton of bricks. "The truth about what, Claire?" I asked, my voice shaking now. "What is the truth? What have you been hiding from me?" She took a deep breath, her eyes brimming with tears now. "David, I didn't want to hurt you. I never meant for it to go this far." My heart was racing. I felt like I couldn't breathe. like the walls were closing in. I had been living in a fog, and now it was all becoming too real. Claire had been hiding something from me, something big. The necklace was just the tip of the iceberg. "What do you mean, Claire?" I demanded, my voice rising with anger and confusion. "What do you mean it went too far?" She closed her eyes, her face crumpling as she sank into the chair. "I've been seeing someone else, David. For the past few months. He gave me the necklace. I'm so sorry." The words hit me like a slap to the face. I couldn't process them at first. My mind went blank as I tried to make sense of what she had just confessed. She had been seeing someone else, and I had no idea. How could I not have seen the signs? "I never wanted to hurt you," she repeated, her voice breaking. "But I was lonely, and I made a huge mistake. I didn't know how to tell you." I was frozen, staring at her, not knowing what to say. The woman I had spent my life with, the woman I had trusted with everything, had been hiding an affair from me, and it felt like my entire world had just crumbled. I stood there staring at Claire, my body numb with shock. The words she had just spoken hung in the air between us, suffocating me. She had been seeing someone else. For months. I didn't know how to react. The room felt small, like it was closing in around me. I had always prided myself on being a good partner, trustworthy, committed, loyal. How could Claire, the woman I had built my life with, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, betray me like this? How could she hide something so significant from me? My mind was racing, a whirlwind of disbelief, anger, and confusion. I wanted to shout, to demand answers, to scream at her for lying to me, but I couldn't find the words. Instead, I stood frozen, my eyes locked on her face, watching as the tears began to spill down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, her voice trembling. "I never wanted to hurt you, David. I don't know why I did it. It was a mistake." A mistake. That word echoed in my mind like an empty promise. Could it really be that simple? A mistake? Or was it something more? Was I just the fool who had been blind to the truth? I finally found my voice, though it sounded distant, like someone else was speaking for me. "How long?" I asked, the words slipping out in a barely audible whisper. "How long have you been seeing him?" Claire looked down at the floor, her hands clasped together tightly in her lap, as if she were trying to hold herself together. She hesitated before answering, as if the weight of the question was too much for her to bear. "A few months," she said, barely above a whisper. "It started innocently, David. We met through work, and it seemed harmless at first. But then it became more, and I couldn't stop it. I felt the blood drain from my face. A few months. That meant all the times I had trusted her, all the moments I thought we were building something, were built on a lie. The times we had laughed together, the quiet evenings spent at home. She was lying to me the entire time. "I don't know how to process this," I said, my voice shaking with the weight of everything. "How could you do this to me, Claire? How could you hide this from me? Were we just nothing to you? Is that what this was?" "No," she exclaimed, shaking her head violently. "No, David, you mean everything to me. I love you. I didn't want to lose you. That's why I kept it from you. I thought if I told you the truth, I would lose you forever. I didn't want to lose you." I couldn't breathe. The words she spoke felt like they were suffocating me, choking me. I wanted to believe her. Part of me still loved her, still wanted to believe that this was just a horrible mistake, a lapse in judgment. But another part of me felt betrayed in ways I couldn't begin to describe. "You did lose me, Claire," I said, my voice low, my anger simmering beneath the surface. "You lost me the moment you chose him over me, the moment you kept this secret from me. How could I ever trust you again after this?" Claire's face crumpled as she took a step toward me, her hand reaching out as if to touch me, to comfort me, but I pulled away instinctively. I couldn't let her touch me. Not now. Not when everything felt so wrong. "I know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I know I've hurt you more than I can ever explain. But please, David, don't give up on us. Don't give up on everything we built. I'm willing to do anything to make this right." The words seemed hollow, like empty promises. How could she fix this? How could she make it right when she had shattered my trust so completely? I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think that this could somehow be salvaged, but my heart felt like it was made of stone. How could I go back to the way things were when every moment I had shared with her now felt tainted by lies? Claire, I said, the anger in my voice finally rising to the surface. You've broken something between us. I don't know if I can ever get past this. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. You've destroyed the one thing we had, trust. Without that, we have nothing. She fell to her knees in front of me, tears streaming down her face. Please, David, I know I've messed up. I know I've hurt you in ways I can never take back. But I love you. I'm begging you. Please don't walk away from me. Don't walk away from us. I looked at her, and in that moment, I saw the woman I had married, the woman I had fallen in love with. But I also saw the woman who had betrayed me, who had hidden a part of herself from me for so long. How could I reconcile these two versions of the woman I loved? How could I forgive her when I didn't even know if I could ever trust her again? I don't know if I can forgive you, Claire, I said, my voice filled with pain. I don't know if I can ever go back to what we had. The silence between us was suffocating. She was still on her knees, her eyes pleading with me, but I couldn't make any promises. I couldn't give her the reassurance she so desperately wanted because I wasn't sure if I was even capable of giving her that. I needed time. I needed space. I couldn't make a decision like this in the heat of the moment, but I knew one thing for sure. The road ahead was uncertain, and no matter which direction I chose, it would be the hardest journey of my life. The next few days felt like a blur. I moved through the motions of everyday life, but it was like I was walking through a fog, my mind consumed by the aftermath of Claire's confession. I didn't know what to feel. One minute, I was consumed with anger. The next, I was drowning in sadness. I found myself oscillating between wanting to confront her more, to demand every detail of the affair, and wanting to shut it all out, to avoid facing the truth. I had never felt so distant from Claire, even though she was physically present in the house. There was a wall between us now, one that I didn't know how to tear down. She was trying, of course. Every morning she would leave small notes on the kitchen counter, apologies, promises to do better. She would ask me if I needed anything, trying to fill the silence with small gestures of affection, but they felt empty. The words didn't carry the same weight anymore. I couldn't look at her without seeing the necklace, the lie, the betrayal. I couldn't hear her voice without hearing the ghost of her affair in the back of my mind. I spent hours pacing the house, trying to find some semblance of peace, but there was none. Every room felt different now, empty in a way I couldn't explain. Even the places we'd shared so many memories together felt foreign. The kitchen, where we had cooked dinners and shared laughter, now felt like a reminder of everything that had changed. Claire had tried to engage me in conversation a few times, but I couldn't bring myself to open up to her. It felt impossible to even look at her without the doubt and anger welling up in my chest. I wanted to ask her more questions. I wanted to know everything, when it started, how it happened, what she had been thinking. But at the same time, I was afraid of the answers. I was afraid of what more I might learn. In the evenings, we sat in silence. Claire would sit on the couch, her eyes fixed on her phone or the TV, but I could feel the tension between us like an electric current. She was desperate for me to talk, to say something, anything that would signal that we were okay. But I couldn't. I wasn't okay. How could I be? How could I look at her and not wonder if she was lying to me again, hiding something else, even more painful? The nights were the hardest. We slept in the same bed, but it felt like we were in different worlds. I could feel her there beside me, but it was as though she was a stranger in my own house. I had always been able to find comfort in her presence. The way she would curl up beside me, the way we would talk about our day before drifting off to sleep. But now there was nothing but silence. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to calm my racing thoughts, trying to imagine a future without the betrayal hanging over us. But I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, all I saw was her face, the face of the woman who had lied to me, who had chosen someone else over me. I was conflicted. A part of me still wanted to believe in the love we had shared. A part of me still wanted to believe that we could get past this. But another part of me knew that trust was not something that could easily be rebuilt. I couldn't just wipe away the images of her with him, the words she had said when she confessed, and pretend everything was okay. I wasn't sure I could ever look at her the same way again. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, Claire came in and sat beside me. She didn't say anything at first, but I could see the sadness in her eyes. She was exhausted, emotionally drained from trying to keep things together, and I could feel the weight of her desperation. "I know you need time, David," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know you're hurting. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But please, I'm asking you to try. I'm asking you to give me a chance to show you that I can change, that I can be the woman you need." I turned to look at her, and for a moment the anger started to recede. There was sincerity in her eyes, something that made me wonder if she truly understood the magnitude of what she had done. But the doubt still lingered. How could I trust her again? How could I go back to the woman I had once loved when everything I knew about her now felt like a lie? "I don't know how, Claire," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to get past this. I don't know how to forgive you when I can't even trust you anymore." She looked down at her hands, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of her actions had finally caught up to her. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, David. I know that. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to prove to you that I can be the person you thought I was." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the fear was still there. The fear that this was just another lie, another attempt to patch up the cracks in our marriage without addressing the deeper issues. Could I live with the constant fear that she would betray me again? Could I live in a marriage where trust had been so thoroughly broken? "I don't know what the future holds, Claire," I said, my voice cracking, "but I need more than just words. I need to see that you're committed to changing, to earning my trust again." She nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'll do whatever it takes, David. I swear to you, I'll do anything. I'll prove to you that I love you, that I'm not the person who hurt you." I stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the night sky. The silence between us stretched on, thick with uncertainty. There were no easy answers. The road ahead was unclear, and I didn't know if we could ever go back to the way we were. But in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't make a decision based on fear. I had to make a choice. The days passed, and the silence between Claire and I stretched longer than I ever thought possible. It wasn't that we weren't talking. We did. We spoke about the mundane things, the daily routines we had once shared. But there was no real connection anymore. I couldn't look at her without feeling the weight of everything she had done, and she seemed to know it. There was a fragility to her presence now, an anxious energy that buzzed in the air around us. I could feel her watching me sometimes, waiting for some sign that I was ready to let her back in, to offer some hint that I was willing to forgive. But every time I tried to imagine a future with her, I saw that damn necklace, the one she wore to our anniversary dinner, the one that had sparked the entire unraveling of everything I thought I knew about our marriage. It wasn't just the affair. It wasn't just the lies. It was the fact that I couldn't believe anything she said anymore. Every word felt like it was laced with doubt. I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep pretending. The constant tension between us was starting to eat away at me. I felt like I was living in a house of cards, waiting for everything to come crashing down. I didn't know how to fix this. Didn't know if it could be fixed. And every time Claire asked me what was on my mind, I couldn't give her an answer. I was lost. I was terrified of making the wrong choice, of facing a future where the pain of betrayal would always haunt me. One afternoon, I found myself at the park, taking a walk to clear my head. I had been trying to keep myself busy, work, small projects around the house, but nothing helped. I was exhausted from thinking about it, exhausted from trying to figure out where to go next. I had spent hours trying to dissect the affair, trying to figure out the exact moment everything had fallen apart. Was it something I had done, something I had failed to notice, or had Claire's betrayal been brewing for longer than I realized? It was a warm day, and as I walked along the tree-lined path, I tried to focus on the sounds of the birds, the rustling of leaves, the quiet hum of people going about their day. But all I could think about was Claire and the broken promises between us. I needed to make a decision, and the weight of it was suffocating. I stopped at a bench and sat down, staring at the ground, trying to gather my thoughts. I needed clarity. I needed to understand if there was a chance for us to move past this. Could I really forgive her? Could I ever trust her again? The thought of leaving her, of walking away, felt like it would tear a piece of me out. But staying would mean living with the constant doubt, the constant fear that she would hurt me again. And I wasn't sure I could bear that. As I sat there, the questions circled around my mind until I heard footsteps approaching. I looked up to see Claire walking toward me. I wasn't surprised. She had been giving me space, but she had also been looking for a way to break through the wall I had built between us. I had avoided her, not wanting to face her, but I knew this moment was inevitable. She stopped a few feet away, her eyes searching mine, waiting for me to speak. I could see the vulnerability in her gaze, the exhaustion from weeks of uncertainty, the hope that maybe, just maybe, I was ready to forgive her. I didn't know where else to go, Claire said softly, her voice thick with emotion. I needed to talk to you, to really talk to you. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat making it hard to speak. I didn't want to face her, didn't want to let her in, but I couldn't keep avoiding it. I had to face this. I had to face her. What is it, Claire? I asked, my voice hoarse. What do you need from me? What can I do for you? Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment she seemed unsure of how to proceed. She took a step closer, then stopped herself, as if waiting for permission. I just need you to know that I am so sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I've made a mistake. I've hurt you in a way that I can't undo. But I love you, David. I always have. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving to you that I am worthy of your trust again. Her words hit me like a wave, and for a moment, I almost believed her. I almost let myself believe that things could go back to the way they were, but the doubt still lingered, nagging at the back of my mind. Could I ever look at her the same way again? Could I really trust her after everything? I don't know, Claire, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can go back to what we had. I don't know if I can trust you again. You've broken something between us, and I don't know if it can be fixed. She looked at me with a mix of sadness and determination, as if she was willing to accept whatever answer I gave, but still hoping for a glimmer of hope. I understand, she said quietly, her hands trembling as she clasped them in front of her. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I know I have to earn back your trust. But I am willing to do whatever it takes, David. I love you, and I don't want to lose you. I stood up, looking out at the park, trying to make sense of everything I was feeling. I need more time, I said finally, my voice filled with resolve. I can't make this decision now. I need to think about what I want, and I need to decide if I'm willing to fight for this, for us. Claire nodded, tears welling up in her eyes as she took a step back. I'll give you all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere, David. I'll wait. As she walked away, I stood there, the weight of my decision heavier than ever. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I couldn't make this decision based on anger, guilt, or fear. I had to make it from a place of truth, and that truth was something I still needed to discover. The following days were some of the most agonizing of my life. Claire gave me the space I had asked for, but the weight of the decision I had to make hung over me like a dark cloud. I spent long hours walking, thinking, reflecting on the years Claire and I had spent together. I couldn't shake the memories of our early days, when everything felt so simple, when our connection had felt unbreakable. But now all I could see was the betrayal. I didn't know how to forgive her. I didn't know if I even wanted to try. Could I ever look at her the same way again? Could I trust her again after everything she had done? These questions kept me up at night, gnawing at my mind. Every answer I tried to find only led to more questions. I wanted to move past it, but the weight of the truth kept pulling me back. I couldn't ignore it. One night, after a particularly long day of trying to focus on work, I found myself sitting in our living room alone, the stillness almost suffocating. The quiet between us had stretched on for so long that it felt like a physical presence, a barrier I wasn't sure could ever be removed. I knew I couldn't keep going like this. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay, when deep down, I felt like I was falling apart. Claire came into the room, her footsteps soft, as if she were afraid to disturb the fragile peace we had. She had been patient, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. I could feel the desperation in her every word, in every action. She was waiting for me to make a decision, waiting for me to choose her, to choose our marriage, to choose us. "I can't do this anymore, David," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "I can't live in this limbo. I can't keep waiting for you to decide if you're going to forgive me, if you're going to stay." I looked up at her, my heart heavy. I had spent so much time thinking, so much time weighing everything, and yet I still didn't have an answer. "I know," I replied, my voice low. "I know I'm making this harder than it needs to be, but I don't know how to move forward, Claire. I don't know if I can trust you again, and I don't know if I want to fight for something that feels so broken." She took a deep breath, and I saw the tears welling up in her eyes. "I've made mistakes, David, and I know I've hurt you in ways I can never take back. But I love you. I've always loved you, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this. I'll spend my life proving that I'm sorry, proving that you can trust me again. But I need you to decide. I need you to choose." I closed my eyes, the weight of her words pressing down on me. How could I make a choice like this? How could I decide if I could move past the pain, if I could rebuild something so shattered? My heart wanted to say yes, to tell her that I would forgive her, that we could work through this. But my mind kept returning to the betrayal, to the way she had hidden her affair from me. I didn't know if I could ever move past it. I took a deep breath and stood up, walking toward her. She stood frozen, waiting for me to speak, to give her an answer. I reached out, my hand trembling slightly, and placed it on her shoulder. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Claire," I said softly, my voice breaking. "I don't know if I can forget what you did, but I love you, and I want to try. I don't want to give up on us. But this is going to take time. It's going to take more than words. It's going to take everything from both of us." Claire's eyes filled with tears as she stepped closer, wrapping her arms around me. I could feel the tension in her body, the weight of the apology that hung between us. She clung to me, her tears soaking my shirt, but for the first time in what felt like weeks, I didn't pull away. I held her, knowing that the road ahead would be difficult, that it wouldn't be easy to rebuild the trust we had lost. But I was willing to try. For her. For us. "I will do whatever it takes," she whispered against my chest. "I swear to you, David. I'll spend my life making this right." I didn't know if we would make it. I didn't know if we could ever truly move forward. But in that moment, I realized that there was a part of me that was willing to fight. I wasn't ready to give up. I wasn't ready to let the love we had shared slip away without a fight. "I'm willing to try, too," I said quietly. "But it's going to take time, Claire. It's going to take time, and it's going to hurt. But I'm willing to try." She pulled back, looking up at me with a mixture of relief and sadness. "Thank you, David. Thank you for giving us a chance." And as I stood there holding her in my arms, I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if we could rebuild what had been broken. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. We had a long road ahead of us, but maybe, just maybe, it was a road worth walking.